Here are 4 players skyrocketing up my rankings that I am way higher on than consensus. Now, let's start with Marquis Brown. Now, I've been back and forth on Marquis Brown this offseason. Earlier in the offseason, I was really high on him, thinking DeAndre Hopkins would get traded. Then DeAndre Hopkins didn't get traded, and I kind of backed off him a bit. Then DeAndre Hopkins got released, but then I started thinking, well, who he's going to be catching passes from, so I wasn't really on him that much. But I am now fully back in on Marquis Brown. I think he's going to have a monster season, and no one seems to realize it. He's currently being drafted as a wide receiver 31, pick 60 overall. But this is a guy, when we look at him last season before his foot injury, was absolutely a target monster. In the 7 games he played last season before that foot injury, he had 9 or more targets in 6 of them and 64 total targets over that stretch. He was on an absolute tear, and if that would have continued for the rest of the season, he would have absolutely finished as a top 5, maybe even a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, great. He's going to get a bunch of targets, but who are these targets going to be coming from? Colt McCoy, Clayton Tune? I don't think so. I think they're going to be coming from Kyler Murray. The more I look into it, the more I start to think we're going to see Kyler Murray week 1 or week 2. He had a clean ACL tear, meaning no other tendons, no other ligaments. That's a 9-month recovery typically. And we've seen other quarterbacks like Joe Burrow tear his ACL week 11, and he was back out there week 1, threw for over 4,600 yards, over 30 touchdowns that year. And this is good for Hollywood Brown, because one thing that may be affected for Kyler Murray with this ACL is his mobility, but that's going to force Kyler Murray to be more of a pocket passer. This is also a team where their defense hasn't gotten any better. We should expect them to be in a lot of high-scoring games, a lot of negative game script, a lot of pass attempts, and Marquis Brown is clearly the best wide receiver on the team right now. I mean, who else are we really looking at here? Rondell Moore, Greg Dortch, Trey McBride. There are not many mouths to feed here. We could see Marquis Brown getting double-digit targets in a ton of games again, just like we saw last year when he was smashing. As long as Kyler Murray is out there, and I think he will be either week 1 or week 2, I do think we're going to see Kyler Murray. That's all Marquis Brown needs. And again, wide receiver 31, pick 60. The pace he was on last year before that foot injury would have smashed, absolutely smashed that ADP. Those are the kind of guys you want to draft. I'm loving Hollywood Brown right now. All right, let's move on to a running back now. It's DeAndre Swift. And I know a lot of you just clicked away. You're groaning, whatever. I think DeAndre Swift is well worth the risk this year, because all the risk is already priced into his ADP. He's currently being drafted as an RB23, pick 78. But he's in a better situation now. Number one, you don't have to worry about him being on Dan Campbell's whatever list, being behind Jamal Williams for whatever reason, being in some kind of 3-headed monster. He's now in Philadelphia, and they traded a 4th-round pick to get him, which by today's standards, that's a pretty big price to pay for a running back. He's also on the last year of his deal, so those times when he gets nicked up and maybe can't go, kind of like Josh Jacobs last year, maybe he gives it a go this year and plays through those little injuries. Now, I know the Eagles' offense isn't necessarily the best offense for a running back. It is the best offensive line in the NFL, but he's probably not going to catch a ton of passes because Jalen Hurts had the lowest checkdown rate of any quarterback last year, and he may not be a true workhorse, but that is okay because DeAndre Swift has been one of the most efficient running backs every year of his career. In fact, in his 3 years so far, he's averaged 0.91 fantasy points per opportunity, 1.11 fantasy points per opportunity, and last year 1.13, which ranked second in the entire NFL. That's right, DeAndre Swift ranked second among all running backs in fantasy points per opportunity. He should get more opportunity in Philadelphia, even if we give him the Miles Sanders role, which was 250 carries and only 26 targets. That's right, only 26 targets. If we give him just that role and also give him his low total of 0.91 fantasy points per opportunity, that would be 256 fantasy points. That would be RB7 in PPR leagues last year, ahead of guys like Ramondre Stevenson and Tony Pollard. But if he's more towards the upper end, like 1.13 like he was last year, we're talking about almost 290 PPR fantasy points. That's a top 5 running back that you drafted as an RB23, pick 78. Kind of like Josh Jacobs last year. There are a lot of parallels here for DeAndre Swift and Josh Jacobs. Obviously, Josh Jacobs wasn't on a new team, but Swift in the contract year, he's a highly efficient runner. He doesn't need a ton of touches, And in this offense, defenses aren't going to sit there and stack the box and try to stop the run. You got to worry about A.J. Brown. You got to worry about Devonta Smith. You got to worry about Jalen Hurts. I think DeAndre Swift smashes in this offense this year, and he's an absolute bargain. So I am way higher on him than consensus right now. And then a couple spots down is Rashad White going at pick 83, and I don't get this either. One thing we want to target in PPR formats are running backs who catch passes, and Rashad White had 50 catches last year despite playing with Leonard Fournette, who had 73 catches. Leonard Fournette is gone. I don't want to hear about Sean Tucker. Maybe Sean Tucker will get some early down work, but he's not going to catch many passes. I don't want to hear about Keyshawn Vaughn, who's entering, year 4 and still hasn't done anything in the NFL. They have no trust in this guy. At a minimum, Rashad White is going to catch a ton of passes. You may be saying, well, he doesn't have Tom Brady anymore. Tom Brady who checks it down all the time. You're right. But Baker Mayfield led all quarterbacks in check down percentage last year. I think Rashad White can go over 80 catches this year. And if he does, he's going to finish as a top 12 PPR almost by default. When I look at the running backs that can go for 80 plus catches, you're talking about guys like Christian McCaffrey, first rounder. Austin Eckler, first rounder. Bijan Robinson, first rounder. Saquon Barkley, borderline first, second rounder. Ramondre Stevenson, Jahmyr Gibbs, third, fourth rounders. And then you got Rashad White, who's down in the 7th, 8th round of drafts. He's an absolute bargain right now, if nothing else, just for the pass catching. And by the way, he should get the lion's share of the carries too. Who are the other running backs? I just mentioned them. Undrafted Sean Tucker. Keyshawn Vaughn, get out of here with that. They spent third-round draft capital on Rashad White last year, and even though he couldn't pull away from Lenny, he was technically the starter over Lenny, getting more touches than Lenny. He's going to be the guy. He could absolutely smash in fantasy this year. Pick 80 is ludicrous, way too low for this guy. Give me all the Rashad White. And then finally, let's go with the tight end, because we know there's always these waiver wire, late round tight end values that come out of nowhere and help people win leagues. Last year was David Njoku and Evan Ingram, and this year it might be Greg Dulcich. He's going as the tight end 13, but he's picked 133 in fantasy drafts right now. Had a good rookie season for a rookie tight end, but the nice thing is he was involved in this offense. Obviously, this offense did not throw the ball a lot, but he was the number 3 target in this offense, behind only Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy, of course. But also, new head coach Sean Payton has a history of using his tight ends. Jeremy Shockey, Jimmy Graham. He'll use Greg Dulcich. He's already talked about that he likes Greg Dulcich. He likes some of the things he can do. I think we're going to see a second-year leap from Greg Dulcich this year. And contrary to what people think, these Broncos wide receivers aren't very good. I know a lot of you accept that Courtland Sutton isn't very good, but trust me, Jerry Jeudy isn't very good either. Contrary to what you've been told by people on Twitter who think they know, go look at his actual route running. He's not very good. He does some things well, but he does a lot of things not very well. There's a clear path here for Greg Dulcich being a target monster in this offense. I could see it being very similar to Pat Freiermuth last year, who had 98 targets. I could see Dulcich coming close to that 100 target mark, and if he does, he's going to be an absolute steal at the tight end position, and he's going to be one of those guys you get off waiver wire more than likely, who helps put your team over the top if you either A, drafted a bust, or B, just waited on tight end. So those are 4 guys I am way higher on than consensus, but if you want to see 3 of my favorite hidden gems, check out this video right here.